Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, there is no monster, no ghosty, no ghoulie, no long-legged beastie more frightening than a small town. Plus, the DCU, the MORPHIN GRID, the mean streets of Exit City, Ted's House of Cheese. They say nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, but my friend Throat Wobbler Mangrove told me to stand by for something completely different. It's Major Spoilers Flying Podcast, and it's on the hour.
Welcome to issue 1099 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Yes, your taxes are due pretty soon. If you didn't understand that intro, be sure to check out the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show where we talk about Hasbro, EBITDA, and a whole lot more. And if you don't know what EBITDA is, then you're doing it wrong. EBITDA. Earnings before income tax amortization and something else. So, there you go.
Everyone on this channel is a liberal arts major.
Oh no, you need to learn some basic stock things. Everybody does. I really think that if I were to go and start designing some high school and grade school curriculums, I would still include a lot of science and a lot of arts, but I would definitely start putting in financial management and money management at a very, very early age so that people know how money is supposed to work and how it's supposed to work for you. Because even my kids today, they just have no idea how money works. And I try to explain to them, this is how you can get money to work for you. And they're just like, And so I think, financial accounting, that kind of stuff is really good to learn at a really young age, including arts. Art history is also a big thing. That would also be a part of it as well. That's what I would do. But we're not here to talk about EBITDA, and we're not here to talk about Hasbro. That can be found only if you're a patron over at patreon.com/major spoilers. In the meantime, we're going to talk about some comic books because that's what you are here for. We're going to be talking about something that's killing the children a little bit later on. But first, our individual reviews. Oh boy, let us look to last week when DC Comics released the final issue of Zatanna, Bring Down the House, number 5, for Mariko Tamaki and Javier Rodriguez. This is a $5.99 comic, and I understand with the talent that's involved that they probably kicked this up. This is also a mature reader's title, and I only read it in digital, so I don't know if this is a prestige format or not, but that's the reason for the upper price. That being said, I'm not sure what I read over this 5-issue run. It starts off really interesting because Zatanna doesn't do magic, and now you've got the Council of Magicians and the Bunnies who are after her, and John Constantine is trying to explain things to her, and then she gets in a big fight, and she has a major revelation, and of course half the issue is printed backwards, because of course that's how magic works in the DCU. And I'm not sure at the end, the revelation that Zatanna, his disappearance is related specifically to him doing the one thing that magicians are not supposed to do, and that is steal other people's magic and magical powers. And the revelation is Zatanna was stealing Zatanna's powers at a young age and basically blaming her for all of the problems that she was having. Like, it's a very abusive relationship is the way it's coming off. And her trying to reconcile with the abusive relationship of her father stealing her magic powers, and her coming to the realization that I'm more powerful than my father. I've always been more powerful than my father. I am banishing my father away forever. And that's fine. That's an interesting story to tell. That's an interesting way to look at childhood trauma and how people hide childhood trauma away due to gaslighting and their own perceptions that they are the reason for all of the problems. Zatanna, for all of her life, has believed that she is the reason why her father disappeared, and it was all her fault to do it, and everybody hates her. Yeah, that's true. I don't know if everybody hates her, but it's certainly true that she is responsible for her father's disappearance because he was doing bad things. that's a lot to try to distill, especially if you're getting into this final issue, which is the big showdown, the revelation and the showdown, because the art is just so, I don't want to say technicolor, but it is neon greens and pinks and blues and color splashes everywhere and stretchy art, things that are happening between flashes of magic being thrown out, backwards letters. It's a lot to take in. And I'm not sure how generalized readers of the DC universe, the common man, or woman, not, we don't discriminate here. I don't know how the regular reader, the common reader of the DCU, how they feel about Zatanna. Do you know, Matthew, what is the general perception of Zatanna?
I mean, Zatanna really hasn't been vital since probably the late 1940s. Honestly, even people our age who were reading in the 80s really just see Zatanna as Zatanna's father, much as like corn chips are just
he trained Batman and Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, but that's not canon.
But that's where so many people will have a touch point on who Zatanna is. So when you then portray Zatanna as an abusive parent, I don't know how people sit with that. On the one hand, I'm kind of like, well, I always thought Zatanna was a good guy, but he's really a bad person here. And maybe that's also a little bit of the point. But there may be some people that are really offended by, we're taking another good guy and we're turning them bad. I don't know.
I hate it just from what you've described, because Zatanna is not just, and again, I'm an old school.
No, he was in charge of the Council of Mages, or whatever they're called, the Council of Magicians.
But more than that, he is one of DC's original heroes. He literally debuted in Action Comics #1.
Right. And so, fine. He's an old guy. He's an old character. Anybody who read issue #1 is dead by now. And so it doesn't really matter. I get that kind of standpoint. And this is not a story that is in the main continuity of DC Comics, right? It ends with Zatanna being offered a position on the Justice League. And, so that's kind of cool. But man, this thing goes places and does things, and it's a head trip, and you really have to pay attention to everything, because even in the pages or parts of the page where you think that, here's just a big pink line. No, you have to really look at it, because there's art and stuff that's going on inside that big pink line. And it's, I don't think that this is a mess. I think that this is an interesting story that is looking at a particular topic using magic and these two characters as the focus point. From the 5-issue run, I don't know if it is successful in telling a story that is super engaging, because there's this whole point where you go off with Constantine in issue 4. I don't know. I was done with this. The first issue I spoke very highly of, or maybe it was issue 2 that I spoke very highly of on the show. And I thought, this is going places. This is going to be good. And then I get to the end and I'm like, I really don't know. It was fine. It wasn't to my taste. It certainly might be for some people. And I think maybe the subject matter of mature reader comic might also be limiting to some people. I think it's an interesting story. Probably not for me in the end. I did read all 5 issues. I bought all 5 issues. In the end, it's something that I'm not sure that I would highly recommend. If you want to borrow it from a library when it gets collected, or if it gets collected, certainly do that. But for now, Zatanna, Bring Down the House #5, competently written, very good art. I'm only giving it 3 out of 5 slices of meatloaf, just because of my personal preference of what I was hoping from the series and what I didn't get out of the series. So there you go. Out this week, also, we get some Power Rangers stuff. If you thought Power Rangers were gone at Boom Studios, guess again. There's plenty of Power Rangers to come, and this week, Power Rangers Across the Morphin Grid #1 is released with a plethora, a virtual plethora, a dearth of plethora from, or a plethora of dearth, however you like to say it, from writers and artists, because it's an anthology book.
It is. And most importantly, every story in Across the Morphin Grid #1 features a Power Ranger written by the actor who played that Power Ranger on screen. So the first story is the story of Mighty Morphin Blue Ranger Billy, written by David Yost, his actor. Tanya, played by Nakia Burrise, the Yellow Zeo Ranger, has a story. The good Mighty Morphin Red Ranger, Rocky, the one who didn't commit COVID fraud, Steve Cardenas, wrote a story of his character. Walter Jones, the original Black Ranger, the Mammoth Ranger, wrote a story of his character. And then we jump ahead to Chloe, the Pink Ranger of the Hyperforce team, and she gets her story as well, which I get it. Hyperforce is the new hotness, and it's fine. The thing about this issue, and it's an issue with, I shouldn't say an issue. It is a sore point with a lot of anthologies, is it's kind of hard to balance out what you're reviewing. So if you go through this, like the Billy's Metamorphosis story, the first story, is interesting and seems to take place somewhere in and around the end of Boom's Mighty Morphin stories, which just recently ended. So that's kind of interesting, but it could also be tied into the last American season that we saw on Netflix, the Power Rangers Cosmic Fury, which David Yost actually came back and played Billy as a 50-year-old man. So that's interesting, but it does give you that question of, does this exist? Where does this exist? The same is true of the story with Rocky. I will say that the best part about the Yellow Ranger story, if you remember your Power Rangers lore, and why wouldn't you? You've been listening to me yammer on about it for years. Back in the day, the original three, the Yellow, Red, and Black Rangers, left Angel Grove for the Peace Conference and were replaced by three different actors. But at the end of that season, what people don't seem to recall is that actress who came in and replaced Trini as the Yellow Ranger was herself replaced by another actress. So this is the only time that I have found anywhere in the universe that we've actually seen both Yellow Rangers, the initial replacement Yellow Rangers, both Yellow Zeo Rangers, Tanya and, what is her name? Aisha. Tanya. Yeah. Tanya and Aisha appear together in this story. That's fun for if you're a nerd. I feel like the wonderful part of this is when you portray a character, you have ideas, you have thoughts, you have, Stanislavskian theories about the person's backstory or whatever it is about your character that you love. And seeing that come forth here is hilarious because the story of Chloe, the Hyperforce Pink Ranger, is actually Chloe and Vesper in the literally in the kitchen making burritos, but all they have is candy. So they end up making a candy burrito out of M&Ms and Jolly Ranchers and jelly beans. And it's cute. It's absolutely adorable. And it's backing a story where Walter Jones writes a little bit of Zack showing off his trademark, hip hop keto, and doing a couple of his big giant kicks and inspiring young people in Angel Grove and then going and punching an alien so hard that it bursts. It's all really neat, but it's also something where you do get that strange moment of Billy's story is a fight for the life of the universe. And Tanya's story is all about, is Aisha going to die? Will Adam die? And then Chloe's making candy burritos. So you do have that moment of a little bit of dissonance. The Rocky story is absolutely hilarious because his little sister steals his morpher. And for the, by my count, fourth time in Boom Studios history, we have a female Red Ranger, specifically, the Tyrannosaurus Red Ranger, running around. So it's interesting to me that in less than 10 years, they managed to do this riff 4 times. But here's the thing. None of these stories are less than good. All of the art is really fun. There are a couple of sequences where it's not my favorite, but it's really dynamic. The Zeo Yellow story is kind of cartoonish and bloopy. It's got a little bit of Peter Chung in it, a little bit of Jaime. Who's the guy? No, I can't remember. I'm a bad fan. The Hernandez brothers, Jaime Hernandez. Gosh, I almost forgot Love and Rockets, and they would have come and taken away my comic nerd blazer. But as you go through this, what you're going to get is a collection of really neat things that sort of match and sort of go together. Are they worth $7.99? For me, yes, mostly. I would say.
How many pages? Because this is like a giant-sized one-shot.
Oh, yeah, it's massive. It's like 6 stories. I want to say it's 72 pages? Question mark. And there's no page
that's good.
number.
That's good. Yeah.
There's no page numbers on what I'm seeing here. I am looking, of course, at Boom did send us a copy for review. It looks like this is 45 pages of material. But all in all, definitely above average. Some of it's great. The worst of it is still fun. If you're a Boom Comics Power Rangers nerd, definitely pick it up. If you're a general Power Rangers nerd, probably pick it up. If you don't know from Power Rangers, but you remember Steve Cardenas, Rodrigo, you might want to pick it up. I would say 3.5 slices of meatloaf. Definitely better than average. A fun book. And also, Stephen, nobody but you believed that Boom was actually done with Power Rangers when they ended that continuity. And I know you're just doing it to be a quisling.
Oh, no, I knew that they weren't going to end it. They never came out and said, because Power Rangers is licensed from Hasbro. So as we've seen with many of their licensings, that ends and that has to be renewed. Conan licensing left ablaze and it went over to Titan Publishing. So when they were like, oh yeah, we're wrapping this Power Rangers thing up. Yeah, sure. There could certainly be more Power Ranger stuff, but because nobody had announced what was going on with the licensing agreement, there is that question, and should have been a legitimate question, because they could have just said, well, we're wrapping this up and that's the thing. But in classic,
and they still haven't said what's coming next.
I think they have. We'll let Rodrigo talk about Exit City, which is coming out in November from Mad Cave Studios, and I will look and see what is coming next for the Power Rangers.
Okay. Exit City is a city that is out in the ocean. Mm-hmm. Basically, the premise is that in this world, sometime in the 80s, enough people were like, we don't like laws of the United States, and so they built this like big offshore city, and which has continued to grow and is kind of a haven for kind of out there science that the EPA or USDA or FDA or I don't know, tobacco and firearms would shut down.
The PTA.
The PTA. So this takes us to our 2 protagonists who are cops in Exit City. One of them is our narrator and is the book is framed by her being interviewed. Mm-hmm. And not like a interview for the media, but like a kind of like a maybe an interrogation, like an exit interview or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or like a debriefing, maybe. And then our other detective, so she's being interrogated, and she's like crooked, I guess. Really, she's kind of she's like your prototypical loose cannon. It feels like she's the cop, that is going to definitely disrespect everybody's civil rights in order to solve a crime or get her man or whatever, right? The other detective has 3 little, like, kind of look like test tubes in his pocket, and they talk to him. And by the end of this issue, we learn what the deal with the test tubes is. But it was very interesting because the sort of the thematically the comic seems to go one way as we are following lady protagonist, Miller, I believe. And then when you find out kind of what McCormick's deal is, it kind of changes. And then when you see the last page of the comic, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're just going full on in this direction after all. The art is really good. I really enjoyed it. This in general, I am not super interested in. Although it's fun to see the guy who talks to his coat. It's kind of not enough for me to actually like the other character. The whole time I was just kind of like, this character kind of annoys me and I don't like her. So, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, this is very clearly like me just not wanting to do a police procedural in a fictional hypertech city. I think for other people, this will probably be perfectly fine, and some people may really enjoy it. I'm going to give it 2.5 slices of meatloaf. Again, not for me. This is probably the lowest that I've rated something from Matt Cave. They're usually I jive with the stuff they're putting out pretty well, but it's bound to happen. The other issue here is that this is like this is a mini series. It's going to be like 4 issues, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the beginning of kind of a trilogy.
No, it's the third. It's the third.
It's a third in the
yeah.
trilogy.
There's 2 other series created by Mark London,
and those
as
already
part of
came
this
out.
Underworld. Yeah, there was Revolution 9, and there was Hour of the Wolf, which came out in September and October.
Okay.
This is the one that launches in November.
So I see. So then after this is going to be the big crossover.
Yeah, that comes out in 2025. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
I got it now.
Is there anything in this that makes you want to go back and maybe read Revolution number 9 or Hour of the Wolf for this big crossover Endless Night thing that's coming up in 2025?
The only thing that makes me want to read it is that I'm curious if the kind of out there themes of this world, like how they're pushed forward in other works, but if they're all cop books, then I'm like a lot less interested in it because I don't know, that sounds kind of samey. So I'm kind of interested to go back and check them out, but not really. I'm still working on getting through Metaphor. I'm trying to make YouTube videos.
Yeah,
there's only so much time.
I can. We've got those other books. I can slip them to you.
Okay,
if you're interested. So
sure. So yeah, 2.5 slices of meatloaf. It's that's an average rating, but there's nothing wrong with it. Just kind of not for me. And that's it.
All right, cool. All right. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, Matthew. Dear listener, if you're on the edge of your seat wanting to know what's going on with the Power Rangers story, yes, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is done as far as the story goes. That wrapped up with that Darkest Hour one-shot that came out August, June, somewhere around there.
June, July, I think.
So what
I know
Boom Studios is doing is they are launching Power Rangers Prime, which is essentially rebooting the franchise from start, kind of like the Ultimate Universe is what they're doing.
Power Rangers,
and it's Melissa Flores is going to be back on this. She's been writing Power Rangers for a long time, and so that will be good for people who are fans of the Power Rangers stuff. So yes, the Power Rangers as you know them in comic book form or in the Hasbro line done. This is a whole new thing. Same thing that you knew before, but different. I knew we had something about this on the Major Spoilers website. Cool. But sometimes in the hundreds of thousands of posts that we do each month, some of that stuff gets lost in the shuffle. But you can go check that out over at majorspoilers.com. Yeah, Rodrigo.
Have you guys seen anything for Rita's Rewind?
I have not. Is that a video game?
It's a video game. I think it was only recently announced, or the gameplay trailer came out recently. And it looks interesting because when you're playing the Power Rangers, so it starts out as a beat 'em up, right? Like that's like sort of side scrolling beat 'em up. And then when the monster grows, you get in your Zords, and the Zords is like a shooter, like you're like
cool,
moving around, dodging things and like shooting things.
Yeah.
And then when you form the Megazord, it's like a punch out style, like boxer.
Oh, cool.
So it's like a first person boxer. So it's like each part of the Power Rangers fight formula is like it's like a slightly different game. So that was actually, I saw that today, and it looked pretty interesting.
Yeah, in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind, the team faces off against a robotic reincarnation of the Power Rangers' longtime nemesis. Robo Rita has conjured a portal to send herself back in time so she can finally vanquish the Power Rangers by forming an alliance with her younger self. Working together, the two will
part of the
rewind, rewrite, and remix the past in this altering the course of history, and of course making lots and lots of money in the process. If you get this, Rodrigo, we need a report.
Okay.
All right.
You guys remember like a year or two ago when I reported on the 30th anniversary show where they dealt with Rita killing Trini? So Trini is canonically dead. That was actually Robo Rita in that.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, synergy.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, everyone who supports the show and everything that we do at Majorspoilers.com and the Major Spoilers Podcast Network. We're sending big thanks out to Nick this week, who just became a silver level member. We're also sending thank yous out to Dustin, who became a gold level member this week. Dustin paid for a full year in advance and saved some money in the process, because when you do that, we give you a discount. That's right. You sign up for the full year, you get a discount. It's like getting a whole extra month for free. Dear listener, we are waiting to give you a shout out right here on the show. All you need to do is join us over at patreon.com/majorspoilers. When you sign up at the silver level, even if you sign up at that silver level, you're going to get 4 bonus episodes per month. Gold level up to 8 bonus episodes per month that are exclusive to our patrons. You get the RSS feed that you can't get anywhere else. You get, what else do you get? You get some original art depending on what level you are at. And you get access to secret channels in the Major Spoilers Discord. That's right. We've got a Discord you can join for free. There's a link in the show notes. And let's say you don't have money right now, but you want to get a little taste of what's going on over at the Patreon page at patreon.com/majorspoilers. Sign up for the free membership level. Yeah, you can get access to some of the free stuff that we release each week or month, or whenever I get around to releasing free stuff. You can find it all. Patreon.com/majorspoilers. And it is our principal source of income. So that means you are keeping us independent, and you're saying nay to all the big bosses out there who want to travel back in time and stab us through the heart. What are you waiting for? Become a hero. Become our hero. Patreon.com/majorspoilers. All right. This week's discussion, Something is Killing the Children. This has been a big hit for James Tynion IV and Werther Del Adera over at Boom Studios. For years, we've been reviewing the single issues on here. I've always wanted to pick up a copy, but I was always getting beaten to the punch when it came time for the reviews. But now it is time for us to take a look at the first volume. And I will say this. The title should tell you a little something about what you're going to see on the inside. Killing the children. There are dead children in this book. So if the dead children thing bothers you, it's probably not going to be for you. I'll just say that right up front. There are some bodies that are mutilated, bodies that are decayed, etc., and they are all young people's. So just be aware of that. That being said, I kind of like the premise, which is there are monsters in the world. As a kid, you can see the monsters, but as you get older, you can't see the monsters anymore. That trope's been around for a while, that only kids are able to see the things, adults cannot. And there is a secret society that goes around to take care of the problem so that children are not being killed. We get to meet Erica Slaughter in this book, and we get to maybe learn a little bit about her, maybe a little tease for what's going on with the secret society. And of course, we get to see her kill monsters because she's a monster killer. And her name is Erica Slaughter.
Right.
So what'd you guys think?
I will say the first thing about this book that struck me, I did not pick this up when it initially came out for a comic book powerful reason. The first couple of issues did cross my radar, but they were drawn by Jay Lee. And so the covers of the issues were drawn by Jay Lee, and they were, to me, spectacularly unattractive. And I'm like, well, I don't want to read that. And having read this, I do regret that decision, because it's definitely not what I thought it was when I didn't pick it up in maybe 2018, 2000, when the initial issue 1 came out, in any case. And so I feel like my expectations of the book were immediately turned end over end when I picked up, and started reading this particular chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2019 is when this first issue came out. Ingrid reviewed this on the Major Spoilers website back then. So,
yep.
Yeah. Rodrigo, what about you? What are your first thoughts after looking at this first volume?
I really need to stop constructing in my head what I think something is about.
Before you read it?
Before I read it. It kind of happened to me with Immortal Hulk, where I was like, oh, okay, well, I think it's going to be this. And when I picked this up, it's like, oh, I bet this is going to be like some sort of mystery where people have to, oh, nope, there's the monster. Okay, we're just going to, there's no mystery, the monsters are there. And here's this girl here to kill the monsters. Okay, cool. That's not bad, but I was like, well, that's not what I was expecting. But then I thought, why would I expect that? Like, why would I build that expectation anyway? And I think it's probably because I kept catching snippets of what people were saying about the book, and interpreting them in my own way. So there wasn't anything bad about it, but I did have to basically reconfigure how I was approaching the book, because I had these expectations that it quote unquote wasn't meeting, but there was no reason for those expectations to be there. So once I did that, I was like, yeah, okay, this is good. This is interesting. I really like the design of Erica. I think a lot of the characters have a very strong design. So you can tell who they are from page to page. I'm concerned about the guy that gets the monster sight at the end.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll give him a cool bandana and jacket too.
Yeah. So Erica has these big giant eyes, and I think that's going to be explained as part of the monster sight, part of the injection. The bandana, you can actually buy those. This was such a huge success that Boom Studios, through whoever, it's in their monthly solicitations, sell these bandanas for people to buy. And there are, I think, 5 different houses. We've only introduced the House of Slaughter. There's a spinoff book called House of Slaughter. And then there's another mini series, I think, that is also out there. And so you can get merchandise for those kinds of things as well. As far as, is the monster real, or, leading up to it, I think there are some points where Tinian does a good job of letting us believe that perhaps the boy may be making some things up. And I think there was one point where, even though we see the monsters, we don't know if that's the boy seeing it or telling us that the monster is there. But I think it's, at least even in the second issue, I think I had a question of, oh, maybe this boy is the monster. Maybe maybe it's a shapeshifter. Maybe it killed the boy and now it's come back. And then, of course, the big revelation is at the end was, no, this was the mother and the children are running around loose. We've got to go kill the monster children's, or the children of the monster.
So the title turns out to be ironic, because
a little bit,
being killed are the killing children.
Kills. And so, of course, we're not going to see that. That's for the second volume and the third and the 10th. I think there's 30 issues of this thing out already.
40, I believe.
Yeah, something like that. It's a lot. This thing, I really resisted picking this series up for a long time, because it's I want to take a moment and just be able to sit down and read this from the beginning. And of course, every month Ingrid would go in and snag the title. And that's great. She has really good thoughts on this series. But I was maybe went in with a little bit higher expectation, like Rodrigo said. I was expecting something a little bit more, but I am happy with what I got. And I think the story is interesting enough. I think the stuffed doll that is the house, that's hosting some kind of demon or something, I think is really kind of cool. There's a lot to really like in this. It's the first volume of the first 6 issues, I believe, 5 or 6 issues. I really wanted more. I'm ready to go read volume 2 and volume 3 and et cetera. I'm ready to just continue to see where this goes. I liked it that much.
See, and that's interesting to me because to some degree, each of us had a response kind of based on a precondition or a prejudgment that turned out not to be true, but it did also affect our enjoyment of the final book. And I don't know if that says something about us or if it says something more about, the modern comics industry, but I kind of agree with you. Not necessarily I wanted more, but more I expected more. And it may be one of those situations where the book comes out and the solicitations tell you everything that's going to happen in the first 10 issues of the book, because if they don't, we're not going to hook the readers. And, a big chunk of the readers don't read the solicitations the way we do. And certainly, most people, I believe, don't necessarily read the solicitations critically, thinking in terms of, okay, this is something that's preparing me for what I'm going to read. But I think that, for one, the title being what it is kind of threw me. I feel like there is no real sense, for me at least, of what this book was about before I read this. So I've seen, Ingrid do reviews. I've actually seen bits and pieces, and I'm almost certain that somewhere along the line I used an image of Erica Slaughter in her little mask in a 10 Things, which meant that I had to go and do at least a little bit of Wikipedia research about who is this woman and why does she have teeth on her mask. But none of what happens in this issue felt like anything that I had read before. And again, that feels like definitely something that's wrong with modern comics, because they have, I don't know, they have a title. And you say to yourself, okay, is the title meant to be a mystery? Is it intentionally vague?
Well,
something is killing the children is very, very evocative. But what does it mean?
Yeah, so here's the thing. You said something to the effect that you don't think people read solicitations, and
I don't think
they don't. People don't read solicitations, and the only people are out there that are saying, "Well, I read solicitations," are the people that open up the previews book and they turn their order into their store every week or whatever.
Right.
Majority of people who are picking up comics, whether that be at a comic book shop, whether that be at a B. Dalton, or whether that be in some collected trade paperback down the road, digital edition that pops up on your digital edition reader. First thing your Kindle or your iPad or whatever. The first thing that's going to pop up is the cover image, and the cover image says a lot. Here's this person, and I forget which. On this one, it's the Erica running through the woods with her mask on. Right. If you look in the back of the book, with all the individual cover galleries, some of those individual cover galleries are just a full-on face of Erica Slaughter with her big eyes and her mask on. And you see that. And I, for the longest time, thought that Erica Slaughter was the bad guy because she doesn't look
the monster.
Yeah, because she looks scary, right? And so you're like, something is killing the children, and she's the one behind this. This tells me a little bit about that book. And so everything is, I think, well designed from a cover perspective, because I look at that and I want to pick it up and I want to open it and I want to start reading. And I think that's a good thing, because that's what you want the rando walking through the store to do, is pick up this book and being caught by the cover. I think what becomes funny by the time you get to the end of this first volume, and maybe it'll carry through and be the kind of the through line of the series. What's the movie about with Will Smith and the vampires, and he's the last human? I Am Legend, right? And the thing isn't about the legend of the vampires. It's the vampires are telling the story about this guy that's going to come out and kill you. So you better be careful, right? So Charlton Heston, suddenly realizes it's like, oh no, they're scared of me. And so I think
versions.
Yeah. But because the ending of the Will Smith one is very drastic from the Charlton Heston version, but the realization that, oh no, they're afraid of me, I'm the monster. If that is where she's like on the phone to her secret society group and is saying, oh no, it's had children, we're going to have to go in and kill these monster children. And now you think of the book, Something is Killing the Children. It's like, oh, this is brilliant. This is, the monsters are scared of Erica Slaughter. Right. And she's got the perfect name to be that killer. This is I Am Legend in comic book form for modern day. Yes, it could be. Actually, I mean, at least that is what we get from the first volume.
Yes, and I absolutely, when you say that, I would say if you are old like Stephen and I, or if you love Will Smith and you hear that description, you think, okay, is this just a case? No, he's right. This is very much in that vein, and in a good way. Not necessarily because, I Am Legend, that's Richard Matheson, man. Richard Matheson, frickin' genius, wrote like 30% of the Twilight Zone.
Wrote the button.
So yeah, it's a really, really well done story that takes on that who is the real monster question subtextually, but then it does it. And again, I really feel a little bit ashamed because I hated the hideous art on the cover that I saw. All the art in this volume is really well done. It's really, even the moments where you have something that feels strange or alien. Erica's first appearance, Stephen is right. She has massive freaky eyes and she's giving somebody the side eye and she looks like a murderous monster covered in blood. Yeah. And then, she takes off her mask and it's just like, oh yeah, I'm a cool girl. I could be the person that from your biology class, and that also plays into that whole I Am Legend thing where, oh, this is a terrible monster of history. No, it's just Charlton Heston hanging out with Will Smith. That is, a really well done kind of subtextual point, but also I feel like as the series goes on, that's going to become the center of this. That's going to be the thing.
Yeah. Rodrigo, I wonder, have you ever read Dead at 17? The series from Viper Comics. So the premise of Dead at 17 is we are introduced to a girl, Nara, and her job is to go out and kill essentially movie hero or movie monsters like Freddy and Jason Voorhees and all that stuff. And she's actually got a sidekick that looks like a bulked up version of Jason Voorhees. She is essentially a final girl who is going out and protecting women and other people who are being killed by monsters. That's kind of the premise of Dead at 17. So I don't know. Certainly we have Buffy the Vampire Slayer and others. This is not a new concept of a female protagonist going out and killing baddies. What sets this apart from those, or does it?
I think, interestingly, what sets this apart is that it really sets up some deeper lore. It wants you to know that there's like a lot more going on in this world than just, this an isolated lady who started killing monsters. There's other stuff to it. Other than that, like I mean, it's visually very cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you're like, what really sets this apart from Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Other than that stuff, not all that much, and that's okay. I mean, clearly, this is its own like subgenre, right?
Yeah.
So there have to be similarities, otherwise it wouldn't work.
Yeah. You've read Dead at 17, Matthew?
I don't know if I've read it, but I'm 100% familiar with it because there was a time when Major Spoilers was like you, me, Rodrigo, and Hawaiian Brian. and you were covering a lot of it, and I think you were reviewing several.
Yeah, because it was really good. I mean, it was really good. And if you look
I picked up a couple based on your recommendation.
Yeah, so if you look at the cover of Dead at 17, or at least when the main character is ready for action, she's got big eyes because that is the cartoony style that Josh Howard draws, and she wears a bandana with a symbol on her face, and she, has either, some kind of a torn up hoodie or something else. She got a goth girl kind of vibe going for her. And it's, as I was reading this, I was like, oh, this is very similar to that. But then as the series progresses, or as the issues progressed, I was like, no, that's actually very different from the Dead at 17.
Yeah. I think that there is clearly like a superficial connection, but I had expectations going into this book, and they turned out to not be right, and that's partially why, right? It's because this sounds like media that I'm already familiar with, but here's a writer that's like doing their own thing, right? They're fleshing out their world and introducing characters and doing their own thing. So it's like, it's not what I expected. And if it had been what I expected, that would be kind of boring, maybe.
I guess the other one that I was thinking of too is Hack Slash. Have you guys read Hack Slash?
Yeah, Hack Slash and Dead at 17 thematically had a lot in common.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, Hack Slash, because Hack Slash also has that expectation that Cassie herself, the hack of the title, the titular hack, if you will, is almost as much a monster as anyone she's killing. She's the daughter of a slasher. She's killing slashers. She killed her mother, who was a slasher. There's definitely that vibe here that, sometimes even if you are trying to be a person with noble ends and noble goals, you may actually end up being a bigger monster.
Yeah.
What is it Nietzsche said? Gaze not into the abyss.
Because it will answer, right?
Speak not to monsters or something. I don't remember.
It'll charge you, and you'll have to tip it.
Yeah,
I think it's gaze not into the abyss.
664 Neighbor of the Beast. Yeah, I think I got Hack Slash and Dead at 17 mixed up, but the main character, final girl coming back and hacking away at monsters, kind of is the same between those. So.
It's very similar.
I think they were also coming out around the same time too.
I would say if you're a Hack Slash fan and you totally, you vibe with Tim Seeley's work there, definitely this is a checker-outer for you, because this has, it's not a book that's the same in tone, but I feel like the intentions are there, and I definitely feel like if you were to try and break it down and say, well, this is a genre, then definitely it's the same genre as that. Not necessarily as much Buffy, I think definitely.
Well, and so that's why I'm very interested in continuing to read, not to see Erica Slaughter go through and decimate monster after monster after monster, because, like you said, there are other titles in the genre that do the same thing. But I want to see, how are they going to do it different? How are they going to make it interesting? Because if this has gone, 30 plus issues so far, then obviously there's something that is resonating with audiences. There is something why we have 2 spin-off series of this that are out there.
Remember, it initially debuted as a 5-issue limited, and before the 5-issue limited completed, they're like, oh, nope, this is an ongoing now.
Yeah. So for me, I found this very interesting. I do give it a recommend read. But again, there are dead children. There are dead children's bodies in this book. So if that is something that turns you off, or something is off-putting, or, gives you the goose skin, then I totally understand if you want to avoid it. I don't know about the rest of the volumes. Definitely in this one, there are dead children. So just a trigger warning right there for you. Rodrigo, final recommendations for you.
This book is definitely very much a teaser about what could be true about this world. And sometimes that's a little disappointing. I feel that, like, the monster felt kind of undercooked. We don't get to learn a lot about it. But in a lot of ways, it's fun. You get to see a lot of glimpses of what could be a fun story. So I definitely say this is a borrow.
Okay, very good. All right, everybody, that wraps it up for this issue. Thank you so much for listening. If you found value in this show, we'd love for you to join us on our Patreon, where you can find even more fun, including the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show. You can find out more, patreon.com/Major Spoilers. So until next time, instead of watching democracy burn, we're going to talk about Atomic Robo. Why? Because we know that you love comics, and we do too. And we will talk with you soon.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm Stark Raven, rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the hard cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast, being shot up in a fun bee in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.